Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Fred Masterson with Force Options here. Hey, the coronavirus outbreak has made for some pretty unprecedented times for all of us. One of the byproducts of that has been an astronomical growth in firearm sales. 1.9 million new firearm sales in March. I believe that's a compressed portion of March as well. That's a lot of guns. More importantly, I believe it's a lot of guns in the hands of new gun owners. With that being said, safety is always a concern. As a professional instructor, I feel like it's my responsibility and all of our collective responsibility as instructors to make sure that everybody's safe with their new guns. So I thought I'd make a short video just talking about some general safety, some general understanding about firearms, loading, unloading, things like that, with the hopes that it'll help. So let's get to it. Well, we're going to talk about all firearms in general, rifles, shotguns, handguns. Let's focus primarily on handguns right now because I believe that's where the largest bulk of purchases occurred. First and foremost, my friends, let's talk about the 4 firearm safety rules. Karen Hunter, or Kale Hunter 42, just recently made a video about this. It was kind of a quarantine training video. You can find that on getzone.com. She covers it really, really well and honestly very enjoyably. It's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek but serious at the same time. I encourage you to take a look at that. Now, let's talk about them very quickly. One is that we do not muzzle or don't point our gun at anything we're not willing to destroy or kill. So be very careful about that. Number 2, do not put your finger on the trigger until you are pointed in at your target. You actually have a target. Number 3, we need to know our target, what's between us and our target, and what is beyond our target. Because that round goes through, we need to make sure that it's going to land in the safe area. Last one, rule number 4, is that we treat all weapons as if they're loaded at all times. That's why there's no surprises. There's really no accidents in firearms. There's negligence. So if you fire a round off inside your home because you thought it was unloaded, negligence. If you fire a round off too early while you're presenting, negligence. It all comes down to personal responsibility. It's really, really important that you take this very, very seriously. Firearms can be very enjoyable, but they are a dangerous creature, my friends. We have to treat them with respect, and when we do so, they serve us well. All right, so we have different flavors of firearms. We've got striker fire guns, we have double action, single action, we have revolvers, across the board, a little bit of everything. But let's even break that down now. One of the most popular guns we see out there is what's called a striker fire gun. And a striker fire gun has essentially no external hammer on it, so nothing is coming forward to strike the primer and thus fire the round. A lot of these guns also do not have an external safety on them. Some of the Mossberg guns, this is a Mossberg MC2C. Some of these models actually have a safety that you can purchase again with the safety on them. A majority of them don't, though. Glocks, things like that. However, my friends, they do have a safety on them. The safety is in the center of the trigger. Let's get a close-up of that. And if you see, there's a small protrusion inside that trigger. That, my friends, is a safety. The gun will not fire unless your finger's on the trigger, depresses that safety, and you press the trigger back. The gun is not going to spontaneously go off just because it doesn't have an external safety. So keep that in mind. Once again, we keep our finger off the trigger until we're ready to go to work. However, the idea that these guns don't have a safety is not really true. So if you have a semi-automatic handgun, you're going to have a magazine involved. It could be a variety of capacities. If you live in a restricted state, more than likely you'll be limited to 10 rounds. Once again, that's a whole other video, my friends. We need to get into that. However, it primarily remained the same idea. This is a magazine. It's not a clip. Let's speak the right language. This is a magazine. And in it, we have a spring inside. And what that does is compresses down as we load it and then forces that round up each time. To load the magazine, we're simply going to take the rear portion of the round, push it onto the follower. That's this device right here. Push that down, you feel the spring, and push it underneath the lips on the magazine there. I'll continue that. I'll use my thumb to depress that just a little bit, take some of the spring tension off, use the rear of the round, push that in. Now my thumbs are pretty calloused, so it's pretty easy for me to do. I've done this a few times before. There are a lot of loaders out there. ETS makes a great loader. A lot of different varieties out there that can actually help you physically do this. Perhaps you don't have the hand strength, maybe you have some arthritis issues. There are a lot of aids out there, and I encourage you to use them. It doesn't make you less of a shooter by using an assisted device. Trust me. If they'd had them around when I was first started shooting, I probably wouldn't have the problems I have now. We continue that until the magazine is almost full. I say almost full because we don't want to load it completely to capacity. If this is a 15-round magazine, I only want to go to 14 rounds because I want a little bit of spring left in that gun to help me load it. If I try to load it on a full, completely packed out magazine, my gun may have trouble stripping that round off the top and getting it into the chamber. So a little food for thought there. All right, we got our magazine loaded up. We have our handgun. Now, a couple things about this before we load up. One, we need to make sure that we're safe. Safety at all times. So we don't want to be reckless about this at all. I want to create good habits as well. I never want to administratively load my gun. I don't want to keep it down here and play with it. I always want to keep a mindset that I'm preparing for a dangerous situation. So with that, we bring the gun up into what's called our workspace. I want to be able to look at the gun and be able to see what's beyond it as well. I can see the magazine well, and I have my magazine. Now you notice I have my index finger on the tip of the bullet, just like this. Top secret story here, we want to make sure the magazine's actually got a round in it. If you pull a magazine out one time or sometimes out of your pouch, it's always good to make sure that there's a round in it. Sometimes when we train, we might accidentally put an empty mag back in there, and nothing is more embarrassing than pulling an empty mag and throwing it in your gun in front of everybody in class. So let's create good habits. Make sure that there's actual round in there. I'm going to give it a little squeeze. Tells me how tight it is. Tell me the magazine's completely loaded. From here, I'm looking at the gun. I cant it just slightly. You can look at the magazine well. You don't need to be a ninja. Let's get that magazine in there. I put it into the magazine well, into the rear of the gun here. And in one swift, solid motion, I seat the magazine. I seat it firmly, but I'm not trying to crush this. I'm not trying to beat this into the gun. Once it's in, you will feel it lock. Now, personal preference here is do not continue to spank your gun. There's no reason to hammer that in there. The gun wasn't mean to you. The gun didn't do anything bad. Don't spank your gun. Now we've got a good magazine in there. We need to chamber it and make sure we get around into the chamber. With that being said, this is where a lot of people have trouble because maybe, once again, they don't have the hand strength, some arthritis issues. It doesn't matter. So we're going to do it this way. I get a nice firm grip on the gun. I reach over the top just like this. I put my hand on the rear of the slide. Now you notice we have serrations cut in the slide. They are there for a reason, my friends, because we want to get a good grip. I really discourage you from doing the slingshot technique because we're not shooting rocks at squirrels. Okay, this is a personal defense gun, and I need to make sure I practice and get a habit of getting as much flesh on that gun as I can. Now, this is accomplished in two motions. I'm going to obviously pull back on the slide, but at the same time, I want to push forward on the lower part of the frame here. What I get is now opposing motions, and it makes life a little bit easier. If I just try to pull this back, especially for new shooters, that can be a bit of a struggle. So I'm going to pull and I'm going to push at the same time. I'm going to do it firmly, like I mean it. You are not going to hurt this gun, my friends. Do it like you mean it. Pull it all the way back, and then let it go. Let this hand even start to come back towards your shoulder. With that being said, as that slide goes back, the magazine pushes around up. When the slide goes forward, it peels around off that magazine and puts it into the chamber. Now, we need to check and make sure that it actually got around in there. A lot of different ways to do this. Personally, I use a serration on the front end of the gun, or even if it doesn't, I've got enough hand strength to do this. What I do is I firmly grasp this, being conscious of the muzzle. I don't want to go beyond that. And I'm going to gently push back, and I'm going to look inside the chamber. And if you look inside there, I can see the back end of a round. Now I seat that firmly again. You could also do that, a chamber check, in the rear. I grab it in the back, just like we loaded it. Give it a little bit of a pull, and I look inside once again, make sure there's actually a round in the chamber, and then seat it firmly. From there, our gun is now hot. It is loaded and ready for work. It is now when the gun can be extremely dangerous. Why? Because it's got a round in the chamber. Once again, 4 firearm safety rules. So once the gun is loaded, you need to make sure that it's put where it needs to be put. What I mean by that is, if you're going to keep it for home defense, I encourage you to put it into a quick access safe or somewhere safe where uneducated or unintended hands can't get their paws on it. If you're going to carry concealed, now's the time for us to holster up. And as I do so very gently and carefully. All right, so the gun's loaded. Let's talk about unloading now. Once again, we want to be in a completely safe area. We want to be muzzle aware. I don't want to be pointing this gun at my neighbor or my family or anything like that as I'm unloading. What I need to do is bring this once again into my workspace, find my magazine release, press on it, and the loaded magazine will then drop into our hands, just like this. Pocket that. Now remember, I still have a round in the chamber. What I'm going to do to get rid of that is I'm going to grab the rear of the gun. I want to rack it to the rear. In fact, I want to rack it 3 times. Now watch, if you watch closely, you'll see the round actually come out. I'll do it a couple more times. Now I'm going to pull that to the rear and lock it. And I lock it by using the slide lock device right here. See if I can pull this off, being opposite-handed. Right here, as I push this up, this locks the slide to the rear. Now, I need to visually inspect the chamber, which means where the bullet would go. Look into the barrel. I'm looking in there. There's no bullet there. I'm going to look inside that magazine well, make sure there's nothing in there as well. I'm even going to put my finger in the magazine well just to confirm once again. Okay. Now I know that gun is completely unloaded, but I treat it as if it's loaded, though. Remember that. So the gun is now unloaded. I can now safely store this and put it away. Owning a firearm comes with a lot of perks. One is they're enjoyable to shoot, enjoyable to train with. They can make for hours of enjoyment on the range. But more importantly, they are a equalizer. They are an equalizer, a force equalizer. If you're a very, very small person, it puts you on a level playing field with somebody twice your size. I say that, though, only if it's in the hands of a trained person. If you are a new firearms owner, I highly encourage you, I beg you, to get some training. Because just because you own a gun doesn't mean that you're good to go. You can, in fact, be a liability to yourself and others. So make sure that you get some training. A couple last things I'll just wrap up with. These are kind of myths about guns. First off is that you should fire warning shots. We don't fire warning shots. If you have to present that weapon, it is only in a life or death situation, be it your life or a loved one's life, protection of others. So if you need to bring that gun out and all you need to do is fire warning shots, it is not out at the appropriate time. So no, we do not fire warning shots. Number 2, you need to make sure that you know what you're shooting at. If you're in your home, for heaven's sakes, I hope this never happens, but if you ever have to come out in the dark of night in your home, you need to make sure there's enough light to be able to determine what you're doing. We do not want to be firing shots at something we're not 100% sure about. That could be utterly tragical. So we want to make sure that we know what we're shooting at. Always know your target. Once again, foreground and background. Get a flashlight. Turn the doggone lights on. Be careful about what you're doing. And last point, once again, I said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Seek professional training. I just can't say that enough. There's so much that we don't know or that you don't know about firearms in general. A lot of myths out there. I train a lot of people. I work with a lot of people that say that, well, I've been shooting since. Well, that's great. I understand that and I can appreciate that. And that has really helped our legacy of firearms ownership. However, there's some fine details that everybody needs to understand, especially in regards to personal protection with a gun. We need to be responsible gun owners. Represent the 2A community, represent the gun owning community well. We don't want to be reckless. We don't want to be cavalier about what we do. We want to be serious, but still enjoy it. So I hope this has been helpful. We're going to strive to make a few more videos for you. So until we see you again, stay safe.